Half a day. My name is Dawn Lees Regis, and welcome to my presentation, Symbols and Images of the Feminine. This project encompasses 8 separate presentations designed to share with the viewer how women have been represented in art through the ages. They are Goddess, Temptress, Flora, Fauna, and Food, Idyllic and Fragile, Death and Martyrdom, Lust and Voyeurism, Pinned Up, Pinned Down and Pain, and Vagina Dentata and the Fear of the Feminine. Why, you might ask, should we care about how women's images are portrayed in art? Because seeing is believing. We believe what we can be based on what we see. We define our lives around what we see and hear. We dream and imagine and make plans based on the examples that we're presented with, and we must pay attention to what we feed our souls through our eyes and our ears. Artists create from their own level of understanding. They imbue their work with their life circumstances, with their fears and concerns, and with their own specific experiences. In each presentation, I will share some images, give you a little background on the work, and tell some stories where it seems important. And I'll do my best to present without too much judgment. And so, let's begin. In this presentation, we'll look at women as Temptress and all the worldly woes that exist because of women. Check out our Venus, so scantily clad and with a jaunty hat and a come-on look for the viewer. What you can't see due to cropping is a somewhat disgruntled Cupid, noting Venus's obvious interest in someone else, presumably a male viewer. Mary Magdalene, maybe the most famous temptress in Western history. She's mentioned in the Bible a few times as follower of Christ, as a witness to his crucifixion, and as a witness to the resurrection. But that's it. And yet she somehow captured the wild imaginings of artists through the ages, and a proverbial plethora of art has been created about her. It can be said that it was the art that has developed the story of this Mary as wife, as prostitute, and penitent. She is usually shown in red, thus the term Scarlet Woman, and almost always shown with a jar which holds sacred ointments for Jesus' feet. Here we see her washing Jesus' feet with her tears and drying them with her hair, and quite theatrically mourning his death, while the other 2 Marys in the painting are passed out or otherwise engaged. She is shown groveling at Jesus' feet, supporting him as he is taken off the cross, and as a hermit who did penance for her evil ways for 30 years. Without food and water, no less. Not looking very penitential in this painting, is she? Sometimes she is shown as the hairy Mary, a woman covered with hair since, during her 30 years of penance, no one was around to cut or style it for her. There are stories that she was the wife of Jesus, or his child, and that his lineage remains secretly among us even today. According to an article in the Journal of the Royal Society of Medicine, published in November 2010, this is a painting about incest and syphilis, and is actually a public health warning. The article hypothesizes that Venus and her son Cupid are being presented to warn people of the consequences of unchaste love. The painting provides an insight into the erotic tastes favored by the Italian and French courts of the 16th century. The erotic narrative of the painting is immediately clear. Although physicians of the Renaissance were well studied in the sexual transmission of syphilis and its agonizing consequences, without the concept of bacteriology, they were powerless to cure it. The man to the left of Cupid, the greenish one I've enlarged for you, is showing advanced symptoms of the disease. Other characters in the painting are Father Time, who is attempting to expose the behavior, and Oblivion in the upper left corner, who is trying to cover it up with the blue blanket. Then there is the young girl next to Venus's head. In the painting, she offers a honeycomb, which is a symbol of temptation. And lastly, the playful child who represents complete ignorance of consequence. Another classic story of Temptress is the one of Venus and Adonis. Venus sees Adonis and wants him. She is the goddess of love and usually gets what she wants. But Adonis could care less and wants only to go hunting. Venus uses every trick in the book to seduce Adonis and finally gets him to kiss her. Still, he prefers to go hunting rather than to be with her, and so, hurt by this rejection, Venus makes love into something that will be full of suspicion, sadness, and fear. Anyone who has ever been in love knows it can hurt. The lesson, the pain, is the fault of the woman. After being sold into slavery, Joseph worked in the home of Potiphar, a high-ranking Egyptian officer. When he rebuffed the advances of Potiphar's wife, she caught hold of his cloak and refused to relinquish it. She then used it to accuse Joseph of inappropriate actions toward her, which resulted in his imprisonment. Artemisia Gentileschi often chose themes of women having power over men, likely as a result of her own life experiences with rape. In Greek mythology, Pandora was the first human woman created by Hephaestus on the instructions of Zeus. Each god cooperated by giving her unique gifts. The word Pandora means all gift. So Pandora herself is thought of as the all-endowed, all-gifted, or all-giving. As we know, Pandora opened a jar, releasing all of the evils of humanity. This jar is commonly referred to as Pandora's box, a terminology that has a direct correlation with vagina. Pandora's bad reputation continues from ancient Greek times into the Renaissance and even today. The temptation of St. Anthony is an oft-repeated subject in the history of art and literature concerning the supernatural temptation reportedly faced by St. Anthony the Great during his sojourn into the Egyptian desert, where he is assaulted by demons. Note the demon here is a smiling and voluptuous woman who has knocked Christ right off of his crucifix. Let me read you this poem that was found in a book on Gothic art and architecture written by a monk during the Roman period, which preceded the Gothic period. During the Roman period, women were not allowed to cross the threshold of a church. Woman, sordid, perfidious, fallen, besmirches purity, mediates impiety, corrupts life. Woman is a wild beast, her crimes are like the sand. There is no good one, or if you do find a good one, the good one is a bad thing, for there is almost no good woman. Woman is a guilty thing, a hopelessly fleshy thing, nothing but flesh. Vigorous to destroy, born to deceive, and taught to deceive, the last pitfall, worst of vipers, beautiful rottenness. A slippery pathway, a public doorway, sweet poison, all guile is she, fickle and impious, a vessel of filth, an unprofitable vessel. Eve, the original temptress. There is an odd snaky creature in this work. Snakes as symbols are generally considered phallic, especially when they're near nude women. In my rendition, I show a pregnant Eve, in armor ready to do battle, and the apples are her source of strength. Dorothea Herrero, local artist, states, "This is the original Garden Girl within my Garden Girl series, what many view as first to be of innocence. I included motifs of snakes, black roses, evil eye, and a ribbon around her neck." On the topic of snakes, we can't really leave that alone without talking about Cleopatra, who, as you know, killed herself by allowing a snake to bite her, all because her lover died. This painting, though, seems more about a woman touching her breasts while looking at you with sensual and adoring eyes than it is about being so desolate over a lost love that she would want to kill herself. Contrast the previous with this Minoan snake goddess from 1600 BC. She does have giant breasts exposed and quite an ornate costume, but the goddess presents herself in a commanding stance and is in control of those phallic snakes. Prior to Catholicism, snakes were once considered a woman's symbol of power and the ability to heal. Also in comparison, I present the Snake Charmer. The Musée d'Orsay describes this painting as a black Eve in a disquieting Garden of Eden. Compared to paintings about Lucretia and Cleopatra, there is no real vulnerability represented. The goddess is strong and clearly in control of the phallus snake. The Virgin de Guadalupe is one of the most recognizable religious figures in the world and one of the most important figures to the people of Mexico. She is a symbol of love, faith, and identity, and also symbolizes motherhood, virginity, and femininity. Yolanda Lopez has been quoted as saying, "I feel living, breathing women also deserve the respect and love lavished on Guadalupe. It's a call to look at women, hardworking, enduring, and mundane, as the heroines of our daily routine." Lopez wants to praise women through her Virgin de Guadalupe and to offer young women a role model with a familiar face. Lopez's artwork aims to offer new possibilities for Chicanas and women of color living under conditions of patriarchy, racism, and material inequality. Her contributions to the Chicana society and feminism are seen as significant. Jeff van Turnhout was a Belgian post-war and contemporary painter who was born in 1926 and died in 2006. All of his work seems to focus on the use of large headdress motifs and neck-lengthening collars. Dorothea Herrero says of this piece that a painting is a poem, is a love letter. The butterflies you gave escaped from my belly into my heart. Marie Guillemine exhibited this painting in 1800. 6 years previously, slavery had been abolished in France. She painted a former slave in the same way she and other artists had painted aristocrats. Subsequently, this image has become a symbol for women's emancipation and Black people's rights. The picture was acquired by Louis XVIII of France in 1818. Cindy Sherman is an American artist who has probed the construction of identity, playing with the visual and cultural codes of art, celebrity, and gender. She put on guises and photographed herself in various settings, deliberately selecting props to create scenes that resemble those from mid-20th century B-movies. The word Maenad comes from the Greek Menades, meaning mad or demented. In ancient Greece, Maenads were followers of the wine god Dionysus. They prepared his wine and used it, along with dancing and sex, to access a state of frenzied divine madness and ecstasy. In this altered state, they were believed to be possessed by Dionysus, imbued with gifts of prophecy and superhuman strength. Sirens were creatures from Greek mythology, which enticed sailors to their destruction with their irresistibly beautiful singing. Their most famous appearance in literature is in Homer's Odyssey, where the hero Odysseus, on his long voyage home following the Trojan War, successfully escapes their enchanting call by tying himself to his ship's mast. The mast is an obvious phallic symbol, which represents male strength and support to ward off dangerous feminine wiles. In this painting, the winged beings with women's faces have been replaced with actual women crawling from the sea to do harm to poor Ulysses, also known as Odysseus, and his crew. And here, another beautiful killer siren who clearly has every intent to pull the fisherman, who is clearly totally at her mercy, to his death. In this painting, a psychological perspective involving attraction, fear, and desire can be seen with this siren. Note the stone pillars in the background, the sand at the bottom of the sea, and the wooden-like cover at the top all create a feeling of entrapment rather than depth at the sea. Jones's artworks have a common portrayal of dangerous and seductive women. In this piece, I released the bindings of the fishtail and gave this siren feet with flippers. She is fat with claws, and according to my 8th grade students, likes to fart shells. In my mind, she's attempting to save this wayward fisherman who has stupidly dove too deep and is now unconscious. Thank you for joining me today. My one big hope is that from this presentation, you begin to see things through a more enlightened position, that you begin to look at images presented to you with a curious and open mind, and perhaps develop a healthy recognition that you don't have to absorb images as your own truth. You and you alone are responsible for your own truth.